Hello and welcome to Tabletop Oddity. My name is Jay, and today I'm going to be running through a rebel list or two that are quite basic but are sort of decent-ish options, and then we'll also talk about maybe what to buy next. I have already done this for the Imperials, and that'll be up there in a little card as they call it. But yeah, we'll get straight onto the list and we'll talk through what's in them. Now, these lists are actually very easy to achieve by just buying the core set and then specific things afterwards. So in this list case, you would buy one of everything. You would buy an extra trooper unit, you would buy an ATRT, and you would buy the air speeder. Now, I will do an alternative list to this if this isn't your fancy. And the reason this isn't my fancy personally is because of that air speeder. Not necessarily a huge fan of it right now. Maybe I've not seen it used well, or what have you, but I'm not a huge fan, so we'll do one list without it. Anyway, so this list has got Luke Skywalker. I would take Force Push and Force Reflexes. There are a few different options you can take there, but we'll talk about them briefly. For the Rebel Troopers, I really like the Z6 Trooper. I think it's 6 white dice you get. Just to fill up the points here, we've got an extra trooper targeting sculpts when we've got the Z6 Trooper because it's a lot of dice. We only have one impact grenade because we've only got one extra trooper unit individual pack, therefore we only have the one impact grenade. So the next one is exactly the same but with the concussion grenade. And then finally the last Rebel Trooper is that MPL Ion Trooper. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it does sort of help fill out the cost kind of thing, and you want to try and at least use one of them just so you get a feel with it at the start. As I said, these aren't super competitive lists that we're taking to a very important tournament or anything like that. The air speeder, we've taken an extra weapon, and the ATRTs. Now, I really like the rotary blaster, but the flamethrower, if you do get it in close combat, can be very devastating. So let's have a look at that on the I can't find my mouse, on the builder, just so we can talk through it. It's 798 points, so not that much spur. And I was talking about Force Push. Now, I like Force Push because you can move people away from the objective, but there's Jedi Mind Trick, which gives suppression. That's actually a very decent option, and if you decided to run that instead of Force Push, that'd be fine. I feel like it's both sort of trying to do similar things. Force Reflexes, going to use that to deflect. Is it, you get a dodge. You would have to ready it on Luke Skywalker, but I still think it's pretty decent. I'm a little bit in the way of this, I do apologise. The Rebel Troopers, as I said, the Z6 Trooper, fantastic, 6 white dice. That's fine. The extra trooper unit, extra trooper guy, filling out the points. And the reason we have to do that is I didn't want to make a list here where it's like buy 3 individual trooper packs, because you might not want to do that at the minute, and especially with the fleet troopers coming out in the future, it's like you might not even run you might buy 5 rebel troopers but only end up running 2 rebel troopers and 2 fleet troopers. So just cost wise, I think these are pretty effective. The Z6 Trooper, I said, fires 6 dice. Now this MPL thingy, Ion Trooper, does have Ion 1. It's basically the anti-vehicle one, whereas the Z6 Trooper is like the spam loads of dice, possibly an infantry one. But it's got Ion 1, so if your opponent does have something like an ATST or even an ATRT, you can try and sort of disable it if you get in there quickly. It does get exhausted, so you do need to ready it, but it's... and it is 32 points. I'm not a huge fan of it in comparison to the Z6 Trooper, but I think running 1 is okay, especially if you're trying to fill out the points and get to this 800 point part limit, but using a sensible number of purchases. I think it's completely fine. I've not taken the targeting sculpts on that one, partly because we don't have the point, but you're not going to be rolling as many dice, so you might not necessarily need it. As for the air speeder, there's no harm taking Wedge. He's fine. He's only 5 points. It just lets you do a full 360 pivot instead of a 180 pivot. If you take that, that's fine. I just haven't taken it in this list. The weapons, well, for me, the 4 black dice is pretty decent, but if you do want to try and maybe go anti-vehicle, then the Power Harpoon is available, and it is cheaper, but a lot of this actually comes down to just preference, but for now I think this would be fine. As for the ATRTs, I love the ATRTs. I think I'm not a huge fan of the air speeder, right? It's compulsory move 3, And I think it's difficult to control, especially for people who are just starting out. Everybody's just starting out, but it's hard to maneuver properly without getting killed. Now, you could probably put on the comms. I just didn't want to spend too much money on that, like too much points on that. But I just find the airspeed, it's 175 points. With that extra weapon, it's nearly enough 200 points. It's like the same points as an ATST, and I just don't feel like it's going to do as much every game. However, in the right hands, the right precision surgical strike could possibly change the game. So I would start running it now. I would buy one because it's a cool looking model, and I'd just see if you can get the most use out of it as possible. Like, everybody wants to get better at things, don't they, generally? So, and it's a fun unit to fly because you can literally do speed 9 in a turn if you want to. You could get from one corner of the board to the other corner of the board, probably. So, like, it is what it is. I personally prefer the ATRTs. So if you are running the ATRTs, I've spoken enough about which weapons to take in my specific unit tactic ones. I personally like the rotary blaster as it is 5 black dice, and because this unit has the surge to crit conversion, it does mean that you'll actually get a crit 1 in 4 basically. So the more dice you're throwing, the better, I guess. So that's the most dice one. The laser cannon, it's the anti-vehicle one, but it's because you're going to get crits anyway. I just don't feel like the impact is worth it. The other one, the flamethrower. Now, I actually do like the flamethrower. It's just you have to get into range 1, but because of that spray. So let's say you're attacking a unit of 5. Spray basically means you get this amount of dice times the number of models. So you'd get 10 black dice against a unit of 5, all ignoring cover. It's going to melt troopers. Obviously, you've got to get it into position, but this is why this is a very decent-ish option, the flamethrower. High risk, high reward kind of thing. It's that classic. Anyway, the reason I made this list is in all my buyer's guides, this is sort of like if you buy the core set and you buy one of everything, you can make this list. It's completely fine. It's fairly decent, I would say, as well. However, because I don't like the Earth Speeder so much, that I have made a secondary list. Now, this secondary list requires a slightly different buying strategy at the start. Now, it's possibly too late. A lot of people have already bought their stuff, but just in case this is a route you have decided to go down, this one is basically 2 core sets and an ATRT. So cost-wise, not that bad. There are a few problems with it. 1, you don't get the impact grenades. 2, you don't have an Earth Speeder, and you sort of want one of everything if you're going to be that kind of player. I think it's natural to do that. But this is a very similar list in the sense of it basically ditches the Earth Speeder, replaces it with an extra unit of Rebel Troopers and an extra ATRT. Now, we do add on some things, like we add on the comm link and the long range comm link and all that kind of stuff, but other than that, it's pretty much the exact same. I've put battle meditation on it. You could easily just change that to force push. It doesn't really matter. I'm just mixing things up here. The trooper units are the exact same pretty much. A Z6 trooper, extra rebel trooper. I've gone with targeting scopes with them because you get the dice. There's no impact grenades on these because we wouldn't have any if you don't buy the individual packs. So do keep that in mind. Which is one reason I think, again, the wait and see for what to buy next is an interesting thing, but we'll get to that in a second. As for the only thing here different really is the ATRTs. I would still rock 2 with the rotary blaster, and 1 with the flamethrower because I do favour that rotary blaster. But with the one with the flamethrower, I actually really like comms jammer because you're going to have to get into range 1 anyway. You then become like a disruptive force as well as like pumping out a lot of damage. But that's 792 points. Basically, your 800 point army list. You buy 2 core sets, 1 ATRT. It's not that expensive. In the UK, that'd probably be 170, maybe something like that. And it's pretty much competitive. Now, what to buy next? Well, if you have bought an Earth Speeder and you don't like the Earth Speeder, then you could buy an extra core set. Obviously, you would preferably want to share it with somebody and split it so you get just the rebels. if you can't do that, obviously you're possibly running the risk of having extra models you're just not going to use. You can maybe look on eBay and sell them. I'm sure that people are probably buying them there. So you could either buy an extra core set. At the minute, I would definitely consider buying an extra ATRT and slotting it in. The only problem is if you take out the airspeeder, it becomes very difficult to fill out the points to get to 800 points, because you either need to buy lots of Rebel Troopers and 3 ATRTs. Well, you'd have 3 in total. So it becomes difficult to fill them out because there's nothing else on the board. Now, you could wait here for Leia, run maybe Leia and Luke. That's definitely a possibility. You could wait for the Fleet Troopers and maybe buy 2 of them, and then you can maybe run 4 Trooper units. You'll have impact grenades, and you could maybe buy an extra ATRT and run 3. Like basically this list, but instead of the 2 Rebel Troopers, you'd have Fleet Troopers, and you'd run the ATRT, which I think would be a nice list. It's that. The problem I have with the Rebels is it's the airspeeder, and it's sort of like a similar thing with the Imperials. If you try and take out the ATST, getting to the right number of points becomes difficult to do with just spending a reasonable amount of money. Like in an ideal world, everybody would buy, 6 Rebel Trooper boxes. Well, not 6, maybe 4. But you know what I mean? It's not really feasible to do that. So these are 2 lists. The link will be in the description below. Depending on which route you've gone, might influence how you want to buy next. Again, I said this before, like wait and see, and it seems a bit weird to make a video and be like, what to buy next? Just wait until the Fleet Troopers. But we're probably only a month or 2 away from them, so it actually probably is sensible, because you want to buy the Trooper boxes for impact grenades, and for the Rebels, I actually think Trooper spam's actually pretty decent. Not a fan of the airspeeder, but if you've bought one, it makes sense to just do the initial list that I showed you. If you're trying to be super competitive and you think, I don't like the airspeeder, I'm with you, I don't like the airspeeder, then you can buy 2 core sets maybe. However, like I'm not pooing all over the airspeeder. As I said, it can be decent. I'm just trying to give you an option of what happens if you don't like it. I feel a bit bad because I actually reckon it's okay. It's not like the worst thing in the world. It's just difficult to use, because you end up going forward, getting targeted, and it can be very difficult to make its points back. Anyway, that's just like my opinion on a couple of basic lists. 2 different ways of getting that basic list. 1 of everything, or 2 core sets and an ATRT. You can take your pick. I'm sure you already have. Let me know which route you're going to go if you're trying to play the Rebels. For me, it's a bit weird because we're buying like 1 of everything, and I ended up buying 2 core sets because me and Katie both are going to need our own when we go to tournaments and stuff like that. So I'm not really the standard user, I guess, in this sense. I've bought more than what most people probably would. So, if you're going to critique the list, again, if you could just make sure the lists aren't super expensive to buy, like there's no point having a list with 5 impact grenades, because people just aren't going to have them right now, for example. So try and keep that in mind. Let me know your thoughts on the list. Let me know what you're planning on buying next. Are you going to wait? Are you just going to maybe you really like the ATRTs like I do, and like, I'm going to buy another. Both completely fine. Just let me know. You have to let me know. Well, you don't, but please do. I'm very interested. Other than that, guys, have a most beautiful day. Do like, subscribe, all that kind of fantastic stuff. And yeah, goodbye. Bye, guys.